a racket sport that has gained traction worldwide among club enthusiasts and even pros, has made its way to the Philippines. Alenna Magpantay, co-founder of the Manila Padel Club, and Jason Tamayo of the Philippine Padel Association join us now live in the studio. Thank you so much for joining us, Alenna and Jason. Alenna, let me start off with you. Why paddle and not badminton, ping pong, squash, or tennis?
Well, paddle is a very versatile sport, and it's unique because it offers an engaging experience. And it's very accessible to all players of all skill levels. So it's originating from Mexico and has exploded over Latin America and Europe. And now it's come its way to the Philippines.
I know it has now arrived in Philippine shores. It has become such a popular racket sport. And Jason, you were a tennis player at Duke University. You participated in NCAA tournaments. Why did you decide to shift to paddle?
Well, first of all, thank you for having us tonight. It's an honor to be here speaking with you. It's a great question. I think paddle is this, really unique sport. It's really up and coming, not only in Asia, but across the world as well. I think in Spain, in Latin America, it already has had tremendous amount of traction, but in the Philippines, of course, and other close by island countries and in the Southeast Asia region, it's only, having more momentum moving forward. For me, coming from a tennis background, it's a relatively seamless transition to go from tennis to paddle. It makes all of us very happy when we can pick up our racket and feel like we're back on the tennis court, but it's something new and something novel. And my background, to give a little context to the viewers, which I think maybe would be a little bit helpful, my whole family has been in tennis and racket sports.
Yeah, the Tamayo family.
Exactly. My grandfather was actually the president of the Philippine Lawn Tennis Association, and my mother was probably one of the best Filipino tennis players ever, winning multiple SEA Games medals. So I think on the totem pole of Tamayo racket sports players, I'm definitely down at the bottom.
And now you're a paddle player. But Alenna, tell us about this racket and the balls and the configuration of the paddle court. How different is it from tennis and even squash? I've played the game a couple of times, and it's a little bit complicated for me. But tell us more about how you play the sport.
It's a very distinctive sport because you play with a stringless racket, and the balls are very similar to tennis balls, but then at the same time it's much softer. So as you can see, it's exactly looking like a tennis ball. But at the same time, a paddle court is enclosed with glass walls. It's an enclosed court with 20 by 10 in size, so it's 1/3 of a tennis court. But the scoring is the same as tennis. It's just that the rules are a little bit different. You have an underhand serve as well.
And do you feel that we can compete, Jason, on the world stage, or even let's not talk about the world stage, the Asian stage? Are we competitive?
100%. I think the Philippines is actually a perfect place to grow paddle as a sport. I think you have a lot of people who not only are athletic, quick, have the agility required for the sport, but also at the same time are intellectual enough to want to learn the different strategies. It's a very, very intellectual game. I think it's all about hitting proper lobs, hitting the smaller, it's called chiquitas, or the drop shots, and learning how to manipulate the opponent back and forth. And I think that strategic element is perfect for Filipinos to adopt the sport.
But is it a game for singles or for doubles,
It's
Alenna?
a doubles game.
It's a doubles game.
Yes.
Why not singles? I mean, you've played singles during your NCAA time at Duke. Don't you have difficulty playing doubles and not singles?
Yeah, you probably could ask my partner, and he would probably say he has more difficulties with me than vice versa. But it's a team sport, and I think that's what makes it so exciting. Is at the end of the day, tennis, which is so individualistic, and singles tennis that is, and it's kind of all on you. Doubles for paddle is great because you're able to lean on your opponent in certain instances. In general, most of the partnerships kind of have a counterbalance with one player who's maybe a bit more defensive, one who's a bit more offensive. So it's nice to be able to partner up and be able to play in a certain style together.
A lot of teamwork that you need and playing the paddle sport. But you want to grow the sport, but do we have enough courts?
Right now, with the growing demand for paddle, because the community is growing, there's still a big need for a number of courts and clubs across not just Metro Manila, but the Philippines, in which we are actually happy to share that we are expanding quite rapidly here in the Philippines. We have 9 prime locations in the pipeline, 3 of which are in Metro Manila.
All right, but the first branch that you have is in BGC.
Yes.
Where are you expanding in Metro Manila?
So in Metro Manila, we're going to open on December Arcovia, which is in Pasig. And then in next year, in the first quarter of 2024, we will have Alabang and, of course, Quezon City as well.
What about out of town?
So out of town, we are quite excited to share that we are going to open in Boracay.
Oh, okay.
And also Mactan, Cebu. And of course, in the pipeline, we have Davao, Bacolod, and Iloilo as well.
Wow, you've shifted to paddle, but are there enough tournaments in the Philippines and around Asia for you to hone your craft?
Yeah, I think it's definitely growing. I think in the next year we'll see enough tournaments now, not only in the Philippines, but in the region as well, to make it possible for aspiring professional paddle players and aspiring junior paddle players to be able to participate in enough events to get the proper training to develop.
All right, tennis, you have the Grand Slam tournaments. Wimbledon, US Open, French Open, and
Australian Open.
the Australian Open, which is coming up in January.
Yep.
Do you think that paddle will have that same kind of popularity and stature and prize money eventually?
Eventually, I would hope so. Interestingly, they actually already hosted in the exact same venue as the French Open for tennis in Roland Garros. They hosted a quote-unquote Grand Slam for paddle in that exact same stadium. So I think the momentum's moving in the right direction, and hopefully we'll be back here with you in a few years to talk about the Grand Slams.
And Alenna, I mean, here we have a different looking racket in the paddle and of course the balls. How much is it to buy a racket? And if you go to the paddle club, can you just rent a racket or do you need your own racket?
No, you definitely can just borrow a racket from the club, because at the same time, you want the sport to be accessible. You only need a racket and a can of balls to play paddle. It's very accessible because it's a sport of skill and strategy instead of a sport of expensive gear. But the racket ranges from 4,000 up to 30,000.
Wow, that much, from
Yes.
4,000 to 30,000. And are all the racket manufacturers already, the major racket manufacturers who make tennis rackets, also making these paddle rackets?
Yes, Head, Babolat, they are already in the market. Even Adidas is also entering into paddle. But there are quite a lot of paddle brands that are rising in the market, which is Drop Shot. But Slazenger also made a comeback as well from tennis. So now they're also getting into paddle.
And Jason, when I talk among friends, they say, why are you playing paddle? Just play pickleball. Play pickleball. What is the difference between the pickleball and the paddle?
So they are quite different, even though they both start with the letter P.
Yeah.
Pickleball is played on a smaller court. The ball is much different. It's a plastic ball that moves a little bit slower, and the racket itself, as opposed to being, the weight of a tennis racket, is much smaller, and so it's more, it's a little bit less movement. Definitely still, I think, equally as social as paddle, which is great to be able to go after work and be able to, share a game with your friends. But paddle, I think, is a bit more athletic. The points tend to be a little bit longer, and there's a little bit more athleticism and explosivity involved in it.
Can you give us a little bit of a demonstration? How should you grip the paddle racket?
I wasn't prepared for this, but we'll improvise. So it is like tennis, where you kind of have the continental grip. So you're hitting both forehands and backhands with the same grip, which is important. So then it's kind of the same, where you can go, and then with the same grip, you can flip it to this side.
Right.
So that's my demo for you.
Okay. And for you, Alenna, you never picked up a racket your whole life up until the paddle. What got you into the sport?
Well, it was my partner's idea, Frederick, to bring paddle into the Philippines, and I just simply said yes, and then we did it, and then we had our first court, and I quickly got into paddle, and of course, at least at the same time, trained how to hit forehands and backhands, which was quickly happened.
And of course, the bottom line, when you set up a business, is it profitable? Are you making money?
Yes, we are quite profitable, and we are expanding now quite aggressively in the Philippines, which is we're happy to share with the Filipinos the sport of paddle, and we're excited to spread paddle across the country.
And the Philippine Padel Association, how many members do you have at the moment?
We have, in terms of players, I think we're maybe up to 7 or 8 that are playing really
The Philippine team.
for the Philippine team that are really playing and looking to pursue professional aspirations in the sport, both on the men's and the women's side. But it's only growing, so the more people that can come play, the better.
But the population of players in the Philippines, at least for Metro Manila and BGC, we have over 10,000 players.
Wow, the upside potential is huge.
Yes.
Thank you so much for joining us on The Final Word, and good luck to the competition and, of course, to the business.
Thank you so much.
Alenna Magpantay, Manila Padel Club co-founder, and paddle player Jason Tamayo. Thank you very much to you both.